What is happening out there, Roto Scouts basketball and football fans? Dual Threat Show, gang, Thursday afternoon. As usual, little football, little hoops. Hope to find some winning lineups. Not the best primetime game lined up in front of us tonight. I'm not sure where this one goes. We've had some ugly, ugly clunker primetime games, and just seems like two different classes of football team playing at this point. Been giving the Seahawks some credit through the season for, potentially being kind of good. Uh-oh, the cat's out. That's not good. Cat's going to come flying in here in just a half a second. I closed the bedroom door. I thought he was in there, but he deceived me. Let's see how he does. It's not going to be pretty. He's going to come flying in here any second. But anyway, as I was saying, so we've got an interesting football game. Obviously, for Showdown Slate, at least there's a lot of good weapons when we're talking about the skill players on both sides in that one. There's some effective quarterback play. Obviously, Dak Prescott is having a hell of a year, where Geno, kind of wish we had last year's version of Geno. But I think we can get by with some plays on that. We'll talk that one through. We've got the NBA slate, 9 games on the NBA slate. Not doing us any favors there in terms of having to get all the minutes taken care of and having 2 slates to build for later on and having to keep everything updated and up to speed. Hopefully, it's not the most chaotic day in the world as far as injury news goes. We did just have one drop a little while ago that prevented me again from running the Sims. That was Andrew Wiggins is not going to be playing tonight. Just kind of doled out some of his minutes across. I gave the bulk of it to Jonathan Kuminga. I think he picks up a decent share there. And then I gave some of it to Podziemski and some of it to Jackson Davis. So just kind of spread it out amongst 3 guys who were already on the board. So we'll take a look at that. I have it set up. I actually spent some time this afternoon getting us in, doing a little bit of housekeeping. I built out the naming table that I've been talking about for that upload for Ace Mine, so hopefully those go smoother when I have to do it in a pinch. We're going to test that in just a second. And then, what the hell else did I do? I was doing something else. Something else of value to our conversations here. I just forget what the hell it was. But let me actually, while I'm talking and while we're waiting for some people to trickle in, what I'm going to do is open up the Ace Mine Sims, and I'm going to run it so that we just have our baseline, and hopefully it doesn't go haywire. I'm kind of thinking maybe we should talk about basketball first, just so we can talk about basketball in the sense of this is the slate as it stands now, rather than wait an hour while we're talking about football, let a bunch of shit change, and then my data's not right, and then you have to watch me update projections. So I think we might do basketball first. Hopefully that doesn't screw up people who were trying to time the show in a certain way. But I think that's the move here. Dennis is here. Dennis just trickled. Appreciate that. Welcome, buddy. Jake Swales, what's going on? Fanatics here. Matthew Patterson. Let's get some solid lineups today. I like that. That is the plan. Basketball first, says Jake. Yeah, I think that's the move here. So I tell you what, let me put this on the screen. So far, so good with the cat. I'm surprised. When he comes flying in when I'm not paying attention is when it's going to be good. Joker's wandering into the room himself. All right. So some big empty columns there that we got to fill in with some of this sim data. That's just kind of where we're at in terms of our points per dollar and some of that stuff. So what I'm going to do here in the background. Oh, that was the other thing I did. It just popped into my head when Joker barked. I was messing with the mic and doing mic tests. Does it sound better? Not as hollow, not as ridiculous, not picking up as much of the mouse clicking, hopefully. That's what I was shooting for, and I think I figured out what it was. When I plug in my game controller, it switches that to the active mic, and I think yesterday's show was broadcast via the PS5 game controller microphone rather than the fancy, Blue Yeti nice microphone. Mic's a lot better. I thought that might be the case. I did mess with the settings and stuff like that too. So hopefully it'll be better. But yeah, I'm pretty sure that yesterday's show was broadcast on this, not the microphone, which explains a lot. I went back and heard how bad yesterday sounded, and I was impressed that you guys hung out for as long as you did. So let me pull up the NBA projections. Open. I'm not opening, not saving, right? All right. And I'm just going to grab Ace Mind, and I'm going to run the two sims with it as is then, so that we'll talk about the slate as is. This does account for the Wiggins change. Where it probably doesn't account for that is in ownership. I'll check if ownership's been updated over at RG, and if so, I'll grab it. But I'm assuming not. This won't take nearly as long as it did yesterday. Hopefully. Knock on wood. Shouldn't have said that. So we'll just get these run real quick. I'll just update this info and hope for the best that it's in there. Easy way to tell will be where they have Wiggins. Okay. I won't worry about minutes right now. I'm just going to get the ownership. Woo! That is a hefty piece of ownership on Nickeil Alexander-Walker today. It's gone up since the last I saw it by about 15 more points. So there's just nobody else in that price range. Nickeil Alexander-Walker projected for essentially double the ownership of everybody else on that slate right now in their projections. All right, so that's FanDuel loaded up. And let me grab the name template. So what's going on, gang? Rough night for me in NBA last night. Not a friendly night of NBA. Ended up pivoting to some Paul Reed shares when that Embiid news broke. I know that Morris was the guy who got the actual start, but Paul Reed actually still looked pretty good. Just giving him like 24 minutes. But that one didn't really work out. I forget what else. But a number of the things that I was looking at that we were talking about during the day, that one didn't really go our way. Like Paolo didn't have a great game. Basically, a lot of my lineups, Dennis posted a screenshot in the Discord. A lot of my lineups looked like that, where it was, what was it? He had Goga Bitadze and Jalen Suggs outscored the entire rest of his team on DraftKings. With a Paul Reed, Nick Batum, Maxey. Maxey only putting up 14.7 on DK is rough. 15 points out of Paolo. A little bit rough. That's with time left in the fourth when he took that screenshot, but it was not a good game, obviously. But, yeah, had some similar lineups, but right back at it. Fnatic says next closest is 30% Zach Collins. That's him and Mike Conley. Okay, Mike Conley. I don't see, where's Conley on here? Let's see. When we get too deep into the weeds. Okay, there's Conley. Conley on RG is below three other guys. There's three guys between Nah and Mike Conley. But yeah, highly projected over there too. All right, so let's do this. And we put these here. And we got one sim running, and then we'll update the other one. Okay. That. And then, like I said, I can show you guys I know you guys have seen it a few times already, most of you, but for those that haven't, this is AceMind, acemind.io. So I already opened the sim that we're going to use here, but I haven't added the projections yet. I updated the template file, which I've got over here. Becomes a simple drag and drop. Pops everything in. So what you need to upload, and they're working on different ways to make this even better and even quicker, but you upload projection, minutes, standard deviation. You can leave the standard deviation out because they have a default setting that you can tweak in the settings, ownership numbers, and then a field projection. So for this, I'm using actually RG's projection as the field projection so that I can sim my numbers like against everybody who's using RG essentially. And then we just click through here. This is where you would drop in lineups. If you had lineups built out and you wanted to sim your own pool of lineups against a field, this is where you get to the settings. This is the FanDuel sim. You can change, your minimums. You can change your randomness. You can change the minimum lineup salary. This is the default player variance is what subs in for standard deviation. If you don't have a standard deviation number, if you do, it just overwrites this. You can say I want lineups only within this certain percentage of the true optimal, which I think is pretty cool. I leave these usually alone for the defaults for these sims. And you just do that, and it's going to run this quickly. I'll just leave it here so you guys can see how quickly it does it. Assuming I didn't screw anything up. If there's something screwed up in that upload, it'll just sit here and whir at us for a second. And then I'll have to figure out what I screwed up. I think I saw it at the corner of my eye. It started building lineups. Yes, it did. So it's building out the pool of 23,000 lineups right now. And we'll let it do that. And there you go. So now it's built 23,148 lineups. 2,333 of them were unique. And now it's simming out the slate. It's going to run this 50,000 times with those lineups running against one another. Pretty cool. We will let that run for a moment. And I'm going to pop this back on the screen for you guys to continue staring at. And what I'm going to do here is do the same exact process I just did real quick. And I'm going to do that for DK. And then we'll have a DK sim up. This is the stuff that normally happens before the show. But unfortunately, yesterday and today, news dropped immediately before I was going to go on. And today, with getting the football board up and running too, I just ran out of time. Let's go there. And we need Ace Mine DK upload. All right, so this should prevent me from having to update all these guys manually, because I actually built the naming table, the new column for the naming table. I have to remember to change this look up to 29, so it grabs the DK projection. Send that on down the line there. Everybody looks good. I think it's actually... And there's a couple of guys here that are missing ownership. Oh, because they don't have names. Ah! So the naming table worked, but I don't have a couple guys in there. All right, we'll deal with that in a second. And we'll update the back-end projections. So this is where we'll take a look and we'll see what some differences are real quick between RG, or between DK and FanDuel per RGs. FanDuel sims are totally done, by the way, that entire thing with the 50,000 sims. It's already finished. Let me just grab the ownership and the projections to sim against over here. I'll pop the FanDuel results in while we wait for that to load. No, I won't. Just do this. Fun way to start the show, as always, I know. But I do think it makes sense for us to do basketball first. The funny part is going to be when something changes immediately after I finish this, and doing basketball first doesn't even matter, and none of this effort even ends up mattering. Just because that's how the DFS gods have been the last couple of days. But we will press on. As always, Slow-Mo picking up a lot of ownership on the DraftKings slate. Alexander Walker right there with him. Some Claxton. IQ very popular on DraftKings. That's an interesting one. Like I said the other day, he's certainly been good this season. But, 6-man off the bench, kind of a pure scoring type guy, scoring dependent type player. A lot of times I feel like there's better options than Quickly, but we'll take a look at him. All right, best way to do this is like this. No. Ah, okay, this is easy. How the fuck did he not load? All right, that's minutes, standard deviation, ownership. Have a sec, gang. Have a sec. The minutes don't matter. Give them that and that. It's a 0. That's a 0. Most of these guys are just 0 zeros. Oh, for fuck's sake. That one. Taking the time to do this now, we'll make sure that the sim actually works. I hope. What are these columns again? That's right. He's not going to get anything. All right. No more errors in this entire thing. Good to go. Okay. And now same process Back to Ace Mind. And we're jumping into DraftKings. And we're doing the exact same thing. And we do this over and over and over again. Every day. Endlessly. And we call it fun. DraftKings running. This is the one. Oh, perfect. That one flew in. All right. Let me grab the results from FanDuel. I'll pop back into the chat in just a second and chime in, say hi to anybody who's saying hi, etc., etc. Let me just get this shit where it needs to be. All right, FanDuel data's up and running. Right over there as usual. All right, we don't need that anymore. We don't need, I don't know what the fuck this is. Oh, that's the player. All right, we don't need that. Tizzlemane's here. What's going on, bud? Embiid just really questionable for tomorrow. A little more notice by Philly this time around. Jake says, I will say for the NFL slate, Dak looks great at captain. Yeah, I think Dak just is a most likely to be the pure raw highest scorer in that game by a pretty wide margin. Makes a lot of sense at captain. And we'll take a look at it just in terms of the lineup construction as usual, just what that impact is for the multiplier salary on there. He does have a lot of high-priced correlation pieces, like Dak captain plus CD, I'm sure is a very expensive start to that slate. But we'll take a look at it. Yo, Trey's here. What's going on, Trey? Doing a little NBA first, just waiting on the DraftKings sim to finish up here. Fanatic says the Warriors look great tonight. I think that's, oh, Trey went to Wendy's. Jealous. What'd you get, Trey? Wendy's is so good. Best fast food. Like, not including, like, the elevated, like, even like a Five Guys burger, right? I don't think those are necessarily the same. I'm talking, like, Wendy's, McDonald's, Burger King type fast food, Jack in the Box, that kind of stuff. Wendy's is like so far above in terms of the quality of those burgers. Trey's going for the chicken sandwich. All right, chicken sandwiches are good there as well. I'm just much more of a burger. Just give me some red meat from Wendy's. I miss the Wendy's taco bar from way back in the day. Anybody ever have the Wendy's taco bar, where it's literally just like a big salad bar filled with taco fixins? It was like an 80s, 90s Wendy's thing. There's probably one of those still out there, like the last Blockbuster video in the world. There's probably still a Wendy's out there with a taco bar somewhere. You going Frosty or you going soda, Trey? I'm a little kid. I always get Frosties. As I've said before, my diet is essentially if you gave a 12-year-old with a weight problem a $50 bill at the boardwalk and just said, "Hey, go get whatever you want." That's basically me like every day. It's not good. All right. Let's talk about some sims. No Frosty, no soda. Hey, you're a healthy guy, though. You just came back from the gym. I guess that would screw that all up. Yeah, health nut. All right. What are you eating your chicken with? Water? You getting a grilled chicken, no bun? Lettuce wrap? Water? Baked potato? Dana Baker, get a peppermint Frosty. Had one last night. So good. I haven't heard of those, but I would definitely try one. Too much sugar, eat a lot of shit too. Good. Yeah, all that working out is definitely not worth it in my opinion if you're not eating shit. Like if you're balancing a fun I'll eat whatever I want, I'll have drinks or whatever your poison is. As long as you're balancing it that way. Crispy chicken with bacon and fries. All right. That'll do. Good order. Good order. All right, let's close this. So the sims are done. We can actually talk about this slate a little bit. Let's go by DK win rate. All those guys didn't come through, of course. Why not? Is there anybody important in that group? Troy Brown? That's a weird one. He might have come through a little bit. Why the... These are all guys who I know I literally just went in and fixed before. These are all the abbreviation guys, all the juniors. Did it come back with them in? That's probably what it is. There we go. All right. It gave me, no matter, regardless of how I uploaded. Oh, no, that's what it is. I forgot. The dashboard was set so that as if I was using the FanDuel names in the sim for the DK names. And now it's coming out, since I fixed it in the other place, now it's going to come out with the DK names here. So I have to build another naming table to get all these guys right. But I can find these real quick. I think we can do IV now. And Bagley. Who else was on there? There we go. We're getting some of them back. Corey Joseph, I'm not sure why he didn't go through. Trace Jackson Davis, DSJ. He should be coming up now, but he's not. I don't know why. Akez PJ is just initials. So dumb. All right, do we care about any of these other guys? Akez, I don't think so. What is he? Is he a junior? Always something with this shit. Is he just not in here? That would be weird. Maybe he just wasn't in that DK pool for some reason. Strange. Regardless, doesn't look like he would hit the board all that crazy. I'm just going to leave the rest of these guys. I don't see anybody. Nobody here hypercritical. Bojan. Oh, Bojan got ruled out, didn't he? That's another one. I'm pretty sure Bojan's out. I gotta update that. Not now. We'll leave it alone because he's not relevant at all right now. But I'm like 99% sure that I saw Bojan is out. Yeah, Bojan out. So, all right, let's get into this thing here. We'll ignore the blanks for now. There we go. That's a more interesting board, and it kind of reflects where the ownership was, going by DK win rates. Everybody that was at the top of the DK win list, or the DK ownership list. IQ right there, who I was kind of questioning just as I was glancing at it. Coming through with flying colors, 5,300, both guard positions on DraftKings. I just haven't projected for 24 minutes. He's playing 25 a night. He played 25 and a half last time out, 27 FanDuel points. I could give him another minute. It wouldn't make a critical difference here. He's definitely more valuable on DraftKings than on FanDuel, where he's 5,700, both guard spots. Still valuable there, 12% of winners, but 25.5% of winners on DK. That's pretty significant. But these two guys at the top just eating tons of shares. Kyle Anderson, Nickeil Alexander-Walker. No Anthony Edwards for the T-Wolves tonight. So should be plenty of minutes. Should be plenty of opportunity out there. That said, never my two favorite players in the world to go to. We're talking about 0.84 DraftKings points per minute, 0.86 for Kyle Anderson, but he puts up nights like this all the time. 22.8 minutes the other night, 15 fantasy points. That's the downside. That's the significant basement on that player. But there is enough ceiling and there is enough price-based value just in getting to around his mean score that he should be perfectly fine for using tonight. It's a good piece of chalk. 71% win rate on Nickeil Alexander-Walker on the FanDuel slate justifies all that crazy ownership that we were seeing for him over there. I mean, just by comparison to everybody else on the board, there's no one in that same stratosphere. The next highest guy is probably half that. Yeah, literally half that. 71.2 for him, 35.3 for whoever. Couple of 34s. Who's the 35? 35.3 for Gordon Hayward. Oh, good. Our pal Gordon Hayward back on the board. Much more so on FanDuel, apparently. Bogdan, Sadiq Bey, Getting some action in that Atlanta game. Looking at our totals. Oops, I got too many files open. Got the NFL stuff and the NBA stuff open, and I just clicking on all the wrong ones. We have a massive total in that game. Last time I updated it was 248.5, with the Hawks favored by 7.5. Wemby's questionable. That obviously has a pretty significant downstream impact if he doesn't go. But we should definitely be focused on getting to some shares of some Sohan, some Keldon Johnson, some Sadiq Bey and Bogdan. Obviously, Trae Young, there he is. Trae Young at the top of the board in terms of star caliber play from that game. Here's Wemby. 20% valuable on FanDuel, 12% on DraftKings from $8,700, $9,000 price tier. That's a high end game in terms of the game environment, in terms of the potential scoring there. Paul C. Ruled out 5 minutes ago. Who? Was that Bojan when I was talking about him before? I'm not sure. That looks like it was from it looks like your reply was also from about 5 minutes ago. Just let me know if there's somebody that's also been ruled out that I haven't seen yet. I do have Underdog open over on Twitter/X. So far, I'm just seeing Friday news since the last update, the Wiggins update. So let's get into some positional stuff. We'll go through the positions. We'll talk about the various plays that look like they're coming through, the nature of how the board looks, which is pretty different from site to site. Outside of Nickeil Alexander-Walker, who's just dominating shares at the top of the board on both sites, it's kind of interesting. You got 3-4 guys here in the 20s, and then a pretty long plateau of double-digit options there. Whereas on FanDuel, we've got Alexander Walker even more valuable. These guys not showing the value that they're showing across town on DK. Jeremy Sohan picking up more value than he is on DK. And then Malcolm Brogdon, DeJounte Murray, James Harden. So it looks like we've got a lot more spend at the guard position on the FanDuel slate in successful lineups than on the DK slate. SGA's hiding in here on the DK side. 97 for Trae Young, who looks good on both sites. But these expensive guards, interestingly, Paul George, DeJounte Murray, James Harden, those guys, and Malcolm Brogdon, those guys all creep up a little bit on the FanDuel side. They're all relatively less expensive. It looks like they're in the 7s for the most part on the FanDuel slate and higher priced against the lower cap on DraftKings. So that's the why behind it. But that's 4 or 5 good options right here that don't look nearly as strong on DraftKings. Deeper guard pool, very differently shaped from site to site. Bogdan doesn't look as good. IQ doesn't look as good just because of the utility that you're picking up with these guys. Going through some of the individuals. I do like Bogdan. Got him at 28 minutes. Last time out, he played 30. Put up 31.7 FanDuel points. It's about who he is. 1.04 on the season. 1.06 over on DK. Just a good overall player who sees plenty of minutes and is, kind of a critical cog in their scoring in that high-end game environment. I like that to float his chances of putting up not necessarily a monster, but get me into the 40-point range. If he plays 30, I like his chances to get the 40 points in that game environment. Definitely the upside to get there. Quickly is the one that, like I said, 6-man, better on DK, 1.06 DraftKings points per minute at 5,300, 1.01 FanDuel points per minute. Just scoring dependent. He's fine. He's better on DK by far. 25% of winners on DK. You're really going to be focusing on this top group of not complete value type value guys. It's a solid mid-range list. Darius Garland's in there at 7,500, just below 20%. Obviously, that's kind of a high-end play, really good player at a low price. But overall for the season, his per minute rate is actually below Quickly. He's just getting significantly more minutes, and I think we can all agree that Darius Garland overall is a better player than Emmanuel Quickly. But it's a good group up here. It's just different, like I was saying, that you can pay up more on FanDuel. You'll get plenty of Trae Young on DK. That player in that game environment, potential to be an elite score, 1.27 FanDuel points per minute on the season, 1.33 DraftKings points per minute. 17% of winners on DraftKings, same number on FanDuel. 9,600, 9,700 point guard only. So he's a little bit better in terms of the, points per dollar, 5.3 points per dollar on the DraftKings slate versus 5.505 on FanDuel. Stronger projection on DK. Hi, Ozzy. Yeah, everybody can hear you. Don't you come jumping up here. Zach LaVine banged up. The Bulls are doing the questionable routine, kind of like what the Lakers are doing, basically every day lately. It's Caruso, LaVine, both questionable. Today we've also got DDR is questionable. Lakers again put up LeBron questionable, AD probable, and Cam Reddish was questionable as well. And actually, I think somebody else was on that list too. But the important ones, they're just doing that every day again. Like LeBron may or may not play. We have no idea, but probably he's going to play. Probably all three are going to play. The fact that Reddish landed on the questionable list, maybe he doesn't end up playing. But I feel like LeBron and AD will both be out there, no problem. Dame Lillard, interesting option there against Chicago. 9.5% of winners on FanDuel, giving you a little bit more on DraftKings. 9,100 versus 9,200 across sites. 1.27 DraftKings points per minute, 1.22 FanDuel points per minute. Obviously a tremendous ceiling when we get into Dame time, and he just becomes automatic. Never an issue with going to Dame. That game is a 8.5 point spread. Milwaukee favored by 8.5 as of my last update. 228.5 point total. No real clunker. The first two games, I guess, the Cavs and the Knicks games, Portland at the Cavs and Detroit at the Knicks, are both below 220. Both those games in the 219 point range, and both of those games with more than a 10 point spread. Cavs are favored by 12. The Knicks are favored by 14 over that awful Detroit team. Maybe those two games are, I don't want to say avoidable by any means, because there's obviously good pieces. Emmanuel Quickley looks like a critical piece in that Knicks game. Brogdon is a potentially very strong piece. Darius Garland is another good piece. So there are pieces and parts in those games. But if we're talking about high-end game environments, Indy versus Miami, 238.5. That monster between Atlanta and San Antonio pressing up against 250, 248.5 earlier in the afternoon when I did this. And then a bunch of games in like the high 220s, like LA Golden State 227.5, Milwaukee Chicago 228.5. A 233 between the Lakers and OKC. So the last 7 games of the night are better than the first 2 games of the night, just in terms of keeping things in mind. If you had to, something came up and you just literally can't build lineups, and you had to take, what's the timing on the other games though? Yeah, it's 7 for Portland, Cleveland, and then 7:30 for all the other games. So if you had to take that first game out, you could probably get away with it on a slate like this. But then 3 games start at 7:30, so you got to be there for that. But the least important of those is probably the Detroit and Knicks game. Brandon Miller, questionable as of the last time I saw. If he plays, he looks pretty good. 5,800 on DraftKings, 0.80 DraftKings points per minute. Shooting guard and small forward eligible, coming through Sims 16.5% of the time. Looks a lot like some of these other options. But one of the stronger shooting guard plays. Well, no, these guys are shooting guard, small forward also. I missed them up at the top. I was looking at this run of point guard only options. So Miller maybe just an also ran, especially with the Q tag. And the per minute production is significantly lower than a lot of these guys. But he's hitting the board. Some solid pay up options too. I don't want to make it seem like you can't pay up at guard, because all this is suggestive on DK that you can as well, with SGA and Dame right here and with Trey right there. It's just on FanDuel we had, in addition to those guys, or actually for these guys it's instead of SGA and Dame. Both those guys come up a little bit. These two guys look more like these guys, site to site. So it's just how cheap they made this run of Brogdon, Rozier less so, but Brogdon, Paul George, DeJounte Murray, James Harden, and D'Lo a little bit down here too. He had a biggie the other night. 34.3 minutes, 59.3 FanDuel points. I wish I'd called him out a little stronger on that one. I think I mentioned him in passing and then said, like, maybe if LeBron doesn't play, he picks up a little bit more value, and he went out and smashed. With LeBron playing. More value from the Minnesota side, just in, a handful of minutes, but dead minimum price for Josh Minott. Shake Milton, a little bit more of a familiar player, 0.73 DraftKings points per minute, 0.73 FanDuel points per minute as well, 3,700 both guard spots. Neither one of these guys is projecting for very much. Neither one of these guys is projecting for very much in terms of points per dollar or anything of the sort. It's just a value play. It's just buying the square for that cheap. The $3,000 guy is coming through a little bit better. But not much in terms of ceiling there or anything like that. Don't expect much out of that play. 4,100 for Andrew Nemhard, kind of similar. He's got a little bit more in terms of his minutes projection. 0.94 DraftKings points per minute, 0.92 FanDuel points per minute. Again, in no way a ceiling play, but a cheap guy with maybe a little bit more realistic ability to get to 20 even points instead of these guys. Steph Curry buried down here, more valuable on FanDuel. Another guy that you could consider a pretty decent star pay up option on FanDuel. Here's why Mike Conley's drawing some popularity on FanDuel. 5,300, he's coming through in 22.8% of winners as compared to 6,400 across on DraftKings, 1.2%. So that's why he matters across sites. Whew, Buddy. Look at Buddy hiding down here. 6,700 on DraftKings, shooting guard, small forward. 0.02% of winners across 50,000 sims. What does that mean? He came up like 5 times? On FanDuel, 31.9% of winners because he only cost 5,000. That's monstrous. This is also monstrous. Monstrously bad. 24.1 minutes, 18.7 FanDuel points. That'll ruin your night. Buddy's capable of ruining your night for sure. Overall on the season, playing 24.5 minutes a night, putting up 0.94 FanDuel points per minute on the average. 0.99 on DK, but it doesn't matter at the salary. It's just a significantly better salary. Picking up this point per minute with a decent minutes projection for that price at those positions is very, very valuable on FanDuel tonight. I'm glad I scrolled down and noticed them. Yeah, Bojan is out. He was showing, a minimal amount of potential, but yeah, he's not the critical one. Bogdan's the critical one. Bogdan's also the better of the Bogdanoviches, who are not related. What's going on, D? What's happening, Beantown? You guys are here. We're a little bit of the way through the basketball slate. We're going to do football second today. So you haven't missed football if that's what you're here for. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe. Matthew Patterson's got strong wrist from hammering pints all day every day. I like that. Tipped a few pints back last night. It was the usual Wednesday routine. Buddy Charlie came over. We're playing the online version of our poker game and shooting the breeze. Talking about his Thanksgiving up in Boston and stuff like that. And knocked back solid 6 IPAs. It's usually the move. Get a 6-pack of like Cape Mays. Knock those down. By the time he ducks out at like 12:30, 1 o'clock, I'm half in the bag and I just fall asleep. Sleep into the afternoon. Wake up, scramble to get all this shit together. And then I'm back here talking to you guys. It's pretty great. If that's your idea of great anyway. Who have we not talked about on this board? Josh Giddey could potentially be a little bit interesting. Whatever's going on in his personal life, we put aside for now. 6,100 on both sides, both guard positions. 16.5% winner on DK. 11.11 on FanDuel. Potentially relevant piece of the slate in a decent game environment with stars and go-to plays on all sides. We've got the Clippers doing Clippers things. All of them will show value. Right? Harden was here. Paul George was here. We'll see Kawhi on the next tab. It's the same situation. Any one of them is going to hit value any given night. We might get 2 of them hitting value and the other one just below. And it's going to be a rotation of which one's which. Last night, 38.6 minutes for Harden. 51.6 FanDuel points. Paul George, 39.9 minutes, 32.1 FanDuel points, obviously behind his usual pace. And I'm sure Kawhi's in this territory here. There he is. Right next to Paul George. So, and Kawhi went out and he played 36.8 and put up 58.3. So it was Kawhi and Harden night the last time they played. That could be Paul George and Kawhi night tonight, and Harden takes a back seat. Who knows? All three guys are good. They're all kind of appropriately priced. That's where we're seeing them in Sims. Nobody's overly high priced. Like 89 for Paul George in a vacuum, that's a really good price for Paul George. 81 for Kawhi is borderline great. 85 on FanDuel. So that's why we're getting him in Sims. But Kawhi, 8.6% of winners, 8.9 for Paul George. Similar for Harden on the DraftKings slate. Excuse me. So it seems like Harden on FanDuel is showing our best returns in Sims just because he's so cheap. 7,500 both guard spots. Followed by Paul George on FanDuel. Followed by, I think, Kawhi on FanDuel too. Yeah. So all three guys are a little bit better on FanDuel, with Harden on FanDuel being like way up here, Paul George, Kawhi on FanDuel being at like a tier down from that. And then all three guys are basically in this 7, 8, 9% range, kind of just next to each other. It's 8, and I think Kawhi was in that, or I think Harden's in that same level. So they're better options on DraftKings. Where is he? Yeah, they're all in the 8% on DraftKings. So they're better options, on FanDuel. Jalen Brunson, 17.8% winner on FanDuel. Definitely relevant over there for 8,400. Price still hasn't caught up to Jalen Brunson. 1.06 FanDuel points per minute, 33.5 last time out, 33.1 FanDuel points, right about on expectation. A little bit more on DraftKings, 1.11 DraftKings points, 8,400. But obviously a very big ceiling against a very bad team. Dante DiVincenzo showing a little tiny bit on DraftKings just as a value-based play. I give him 20 minutes. I think given his druthers, Tibbs wants him out there for 20 minutes. He's gotten in and around that number. 18.9 the last time out. They're taking a little bit of a dip in Quentin Grimes minutes to find him for him, but it is a little bit variable at the, that middle, that guys 8 through 10 on the Knicks bench, or 7 through 9 in a 9-man Tibbs rotation. But DiVincenzo, 0.85 FanDuel points per minute for 4,100, 0.87 for 4,000 at shooting guard and small forward. Little bit of value on DraftKings, not really showing any at 4,100 on the FanDuel slate. Just many more options on FanDuel at these positions. Devin Vassell just kind of looking like who he is. Nobody really down this way. Not DK-wise anyway. Luxury item. Same here. You can pay for him. Oh, here's a cat. Hello, Ozzy. Say hi to everybody. There he goes. Go find a spot, pal. Knew he was going to pop up here eventually. Let's look at some forwards. No changes there. Kyle Anderson, Nickeil Alexander-Walker. Both have forward eligibility. Both look awesome. Alexander-Walker, shooting guard, small forward. Kyle Anderson, both forward spots. 50% of winners for each of those guys on DK. Kyle Anderson on FanDuel, a little less appealing. 5,600, both forward spots. 22% of winners. There are more guys who look a lot like that or even better. Obviously, some of them at different price tiers, like Jimmy Butler. Assuming he plays, 8,400, 25% of winners. It's a very different kind of a play than Kyle Anderson at 56. We've got options. Sadiq Bey not too far behind for 57 at the small forward spot. 5,500 for Miller at small forward if he plays. Jalen Williams a little bit more at 6,000, giving you 20%. Very competitive here. There are some same options on a tier like together here. But these guys are on a tier by themselves up at the top on DraftKings. And Alexander Walker on FanDuel. Bogdan, we talked about. Sadiq Bey, power forward only on DraftKings, 23% of the time in winners. 32 minutes, a little bit of extended minutes. At this point, he's been playing 28.4, but we've got him 32-1 last time out. Put up just 29 FanDuel points, need a little bit more. He's a 0.82 per minute guy, 0.84 per minute on DraftKings. But we've seen Sadiq Bey crest higher than that. I don't have the exact number, and I won't take the time to look it up because he's not, well, he's relevant enough on DraftKings, I guess. Let's see if we can grab it real quick. And real quick's out the window because it's not loading. There we go. Where are you? 0.90 across 1,300 minutes since the start of last year. So there's a fair amount more that Sadiq Bey on any given night could potentially give us in an elevated game environment. I think it makes sense to where he's landing. Naz Reid just in 20 minutes showing a little bit of DraftKings value for 4,500. Another price-based play. 5.08 points per dollar, a 22-point projection. He's a point per minute player basically on DraftKings at this point this season. If he ever stumbles into minutes, watch out for Naz Reid, as we all know. Dennis says, how often do you see needing the Clippers guys on slates of 6 or more games? I mean, if they keep putting up solid, chunk 50 and change scores like they did yesterday, Kawhi at 58 for 8,500 and 8,100. That's today's pricing, obviously. But if they keep doing things like that, they're gonna maintain value. Their prices will eventually go up, or like it'll normalize to their performances together. But I don't think it has yet. So while they're all kind of cheap, I think they're going to continue to maintain some value in this, FanDuel like mid-teens to mid-20s range of winners. DraftKings right now, it's more in the sub 10%, but 8 to 10%. So yeah, think they're going to be relevant. Needing more than one might not be relevant. Needing more than one on DraftKings seems even thinner. But I do think that they're going to be. I do think they're going to maintain some value. And then let's see. Got him for 26 minutes, Troy Brown, but I haven't seen him yet. Oh, there he is. He was right above Naz Reid as I was talking about Naz Reid. So yeah, for who asked, Beantown. Troy Brown showing up a little bit. 4,200 shooting guard, small forward. Just a limited 19-point projection. He's a 0.81 DraftKings points per minute player so far this season. But multi-position eligible, lands at 23% of winners on DraftKings. 27% of top ones is an interesting uptick over Sadiq Bey around him. Naz Reid, Keldon Johnson. Puts him more on a tier with Bogdan. But yes, for the value, absolutely. Keldon, another decent player in that elevated game environment. Can't really deny that there's opportunity there. 34-minute projection. He's essentially a point per minute player. Get him on the right night in an elevated game that should have plenty of scoring. And usually when we say that about these NBA games, we do see them actually provide scoring. Not exactly like the NFL, which we'll talk about a little later, where a lot of these games have been just total disasters this year. So I think we can reliably go to that San Antonio and Atlanta game for 2-3 pieces of a lineup in the majority of lineups. Fairly decent plateau of names coming down the board here. All the way down to Matty Thybulle, 28-minute projection for 3,800. 4.9 DraftKings points per dollar. He's a 0.65 per minute player. And if you look at everyone else around him today, even the other value guys, everybody else is a better performer. I don't really love Matty Thybulle's landing on this one. Just 10% of winners. But if we're talking about a guy who's very likely to be an irrelevant fantasy play, Matisse Thybulle is firmly on that list every day. 28.9 minutes to illustrate the point in his last game, 6.7 FanDuel points. So maybe this is one that you kind of scratch off, skip, don't really give that much credence to. But given the minutes projection, he is drawing a little bit. DeRozan, if he goes, just kind of returns like who he is. 7,700 is not a bad price. 5.1 points per dollar, 1.02 DraftKings points per minute. 7% of winners over there. On FanDuel, a lot less, 1.3% of winners at 8,100. Another guy who's capable of going out and bending a slate with a really good score, but not priced and not landing all that strongly on FanDuel. Julius Randle, 11% of FanDuel winners. Julius Randle, 11% of FanDuel winners. In my head, that caught up to itself and sounded like I said Julius Randle, 11% of FanDuel winners, so I just wanted to clean it up. Not sure how it actually came across. DeAndre Hunter, also showing more value on FanDuel, about double. 13% of winners over there, 7% of winners on DraftKings. 5,500 both forward spots, 5,800 both forward spots on DraftKings. Giannis, luxury item, but only 1% of winners on FanDuel, 3% of winners, call it 4 on DraftKings. For 11-2, power forward and center on DraftKings, power forward only on FanDuel, cuts into his value a little bit. Obviously, it's a strong pay-up option, though. You can go to Giannis on any given slate. 35% of winners for Gordon Hayward after that disaster the other day. 27.9 minutes when we were on him. 18.2 FanDuel points. That's a mess. Hate having to go back to him and trust him here. But it does look like a good spot. 0.92 FanDuel points per minute overall for 5,600 shooting guard and small forward eligible. Lands in winning lineups 35% of the time. Kind of unavoidable on FanDuel. You're fortunate on DraftKings because he costs 6,400 over there. He's a small forward and power forward. Makes him a lot less relevant. 3.75% of winners. Don't need to go there. LeBron just kind of appears in winners from time to time on the back of being LeBron. Same on DraftKings. 11%, 18% for Mikal Bridges, Draymond Green, both showing a little bit more value on FanDuel. Bridges 79, shooting guard small forward versus 82, both forward spots on DraftKings. Comes up about 5 times more often in winners on FanDuel at 11%, just 3% on DraftKings. Draymond Green, 18% of winners, power forward and center for 59 versus 65, same positioning on DraftKings. That's a big difference. 6 times more often in winners. Nobody else really site to site different. A lot of options at this position, jeez. They just slapped the forward position on everybody. Who else did we not talk about? RJ Barrett didn't really get there for us the last time after he popped in Sims a little bit in that rerun Sim that we did. Just coming up in 5% of FanDuel ones, 11% of DraftKings Sims. So nothing really showing for RJ. The ceiling games have been few and far between. He's playing well this season, but not putting up monster scores. He's kind of letting Brunson handle that, and to a lesser extent, Julius Randle, or to a greater extent, Julius Randle, in what appears to have changed a little bit. Julius playing better basketball than he did at the start of the season, but RJ not really seizing the wheel for like big upside games. So when he lands like this, he's fine to mix in, but he's not really a priority. Mobley from that Cleveland game, always showing value. 16% of winners on DraftKings, 18.6% on FanDuel. Put up a biggie the other day, 34.1 minutes, 61.3 FanDuel points. That's a slate bender for sure. 1.2 FanDuel points per minute on the season, 1.17 DraftKings points. Looks like a very good option in that limited Portland-Cleveland game. Like I said, there are good players and good plays from that game. It's just not the greatest collective environment. Zach LaVine looks pretty playable on DraftKings if he goes. 7,400, shooting guard and small forward. 16% of winners. Less so on FanDuel, just 0.6. He's 7,900 over there, shooting guard only too. Very limiting. Wemby, there's tons and tons of ceiling. 25 minutes, 65.2 FanDuel points in his last game. That's absurd. 1.42 FanDuel points per minute, 1.39 DraftKings points per minute, 9,000 on FanDuel, 20% of winners. On DraftKings, 8,700, 12.3% of winners. More value on FanDuel, fits into the FanDuel scoring paradigm a little bit more interestingly with stocks and everything over there. and just has the ability to go out and put up a ridiculous score like that in even limited minutes on the back of all those blocks and steals and everything. The fact that his arms just essentially reach across the entire court and is 11 feet tall. Pretty amazing. Hunter, we touched on. Julius. Again, Julius playing better of late. 58.5 FanDuel points in 34.5 minutes the other day. 1.14 per minute for the season. 1.19 DraftKings points per minute. 8,500 power forward only on FanDuel. 11% of winners. Half that on DraftKings power forward and center, but 8,900. So DraftKings price caught up a little bit. FanDuel is getting there, but still, he's still a little bit more affordable, a little bit more appealing on FanDuel. There's singing coming from outside. Trey says, I meant to ask you yesterday, Labs was giving me a lot of Melton for Philly, and I didn't want to play him, so he had like 36 or 28 at some point. Couldn't click it. What made him a good play? What made him a good play? I don't remember. I do remember that he was a good play. I just don't remember the nature of it. It was probably just price driven. Price and minutes. You can't ask me those kind of next day questions, especially after I've updated everything. Maybe if you catch me in the morning on one like that, well, I've still got the info and I can kind of go back and remind myself. But yeah, goldfish memory. Yeah, no, before Embiid out. Yeah, I get where you're coming from. I do remember that he was showing value. He was an interesting option on these boards, but I don't remember with the situation on this or the pricing of it or anything like that. It was probably just price driven. Price and comparative price to the other options at the positions. There were a lot of guys like that on that slate that were just kind of fitting in because of what their positioning looked like, if I'm remembering how it looked correctly. But yeah, nothing leaps to mind about why he would have been popular. Let's keep looking down the board here. I think we talked about most of the critical forwards here. A lot of very playable options at the forward positions for sure, which is good because we've got a lot of ways to spread these guys around. Let's look what's coming through at the center spot. We'll take a look at some lineups, then we'll hop over to football. Pretty flat center on DraftKings. A couple more spikes on the FanDuel slate, which makes sense. It's typically how we're going to see it. But on FanDuel, we get Mobley, who we talked about at 18, Wemby at 20. Both those guys power forward eligible, so we might see some of those shares land to power forward. Kevon Looney is center only, 25% of winners. Probably see a decent amount of him. Zach Collins, 35% of winners, 6,000 power forward and center. We didn't touch on him during the forward breakdown. He's center only on DraftKings. That's why 7% over there. Putting up 1.02 DraftKings points, 0.99 FanDuel points per minute on the season. Has been a solid piece of value throughout. Been getting to him a pretty decent amount. Jared Allen, another piece from that Cleveland rotation. 25% center and power forward only on FanDuel, center only on DraftKings. Just 5% of winners. So you do have more depth with guys that flex into the power forward spot in addition to being centers on FanDuel. It's interesting. Now I'm curious to see where these shares are ending up at power forward or at center, or it might just be a mix of we're just going to get a lot of these guys together. 3 of those guys across those 3 positions, and it doesn't matter who falls where. Come on, Looney shouldn't be on that list. We might see it just go that route. Another one there in Draymond. On DraftKings, $6,300 Nick Claxton looking pretty good. 21% of winners, 1.17 DraftKings points per minute on the season, 1.27 FanDuel points per minute. Put up 36 FanDuel points in 31 minutes the other day. Just 5% relevant on the FanDuel slate at 7,700. It's a pretty big price discrepancy for a center across sites. But a very solid 5.67 points per dollar on DraftKings. That makes him easily the best points per dollar center, and I think probably the second best points per dollar overall, if I'm not mistaken. Not second best, but close. What is he? Where'd he go? 5.67. So he's the fourth best point per dollar option overall on DraftKings. $45 for Nas. Again, just kind of price driven there. Has ceiling certainly beyond that mean score, but doesn't have like, without getting additional minutes, doesn't have like, 40 plus point ceiling most nights. He needs to get that minutes uptick to really be actually relevant. This is just kind of price driven right now. Mobley, we touched on numerous times, but again, 16% of winners, 1.17 DraftKings points per minute. A $3,400 Andre Drummond is another guy he's just a value square. You're just buying that square at 3,400. He's a fantastic points per minute performer, but he's got a 14-minute projection. So this is a very limited ceiling play. He just doesn't need a lot of ceiling at 3,400 to have a little bit of value downstream where he creates some offense. You can see at the $4,900 price tag at center only on FanDuel has absolutely no value. Clint Capella, Mitch Robinson, two guys who tend to land back-to-back on DraftKings. I think it was this way the other day, and I said I'd rather go to Mitch for 300 less when they look so similar and do similar things out there, and it was close. Mitch played 33, put up 38. Capella played just 22.4, put up 34.8. If we got more minutes out of Capella, I think he would have outpaced Mitch in that one. But both of them are good options. I like the way they score on FanDuel, but points per dollar wise and sim results wise, they're both a little bit less appealing on the FanDuel slate, mid to low single digits versus double digits on the DraftKings slate at 57 and 54. So just different plays price-wise side to side, but both playable options, both capable of giving you a reasonable ceiling game for the money. Brolo at 74, not really appealing on FanDuel. Does still have value, 6,000 on DraftKings. That's another one. There's a big price discrepancy. 5.27 points per dollar versus 4.42 points per dollar. That makes a big difference. He's been good. 1.09 FanDuel points, 1.01 DraftKings points per minute. Has more value in a scoring sense on FanDuel, but not at that price, giving you way more value in an actual sense on DraftKings. Collins, strong play across both sides, but way, way, way better on FanDuel. Cat, just kind of an is who he is on both sites. Randall we talked about. Jared Allen we talked about. Giannis we talked about. Mark Williams, center-only guy who gets involved from time to time. 1.20 FanDuel points per minute. 30-minute projection. He lands in almost 7% of winners on FanDuel. And also ran amongst all these good options. But he lands better on FanDuel than some of these, Nick Claxton by a little bit. Naz Reid by a lot. Lands better than Mitch and Clint Capella. Brook Lopez. So not somebody necessarily to scratch off or forget. A couple of good mids over here, too, between Capella, Robinson, Lopez, Kevon Looney. Kevon Looney looks decent on FanDuel. Another guy who's center only, 4,900, 25% of winners over there. Downboard, a little bit of Bam on FanDuel, not so much on DraftKings. 9,500 on DraftKings, 97 on FanDuel. Seems like we'll have the money to pay for him, though. AD, kind of similar. 10.9 on FanDuel, both power forward and center. 10.2 on DraftKings, center only. 1.8% on DraftKings, almost 6% of winners on FanDuel. So it's interesting. It seems like we've got more money to spend at, and we'll see it in the sim results, but if I'm reading it right, it seems like we've got more money to spend on big men and on the guard spots on FanDuel, and then probably taking our value out of that the small forward positions and like shooting guard, small forward types, one of each maybe. But there was a lot of money to spend at the guard spots, and it looks like there's a decent amount to spend at the center spot too. DraftKings more straightforward. You call it like here, maybe you cut it below like the 8.5 line there. It's an interesting one. What's going on the chat? Anything interesting going on? I think we answered all those questions. 45 people here hanging out. Let's take a look at some of those Ace Mine lineups that we ran in that last sim. Keep in mind this sim was run at the beginning of the show, So anything that may have changed between now and then, we're not accounted for yet. But we'll take a look at the shape of those lineups. We'll start with DraftKings. Let me just get it configured on the screen again. And that one. I can make it a little bit more legible than that, I think. It's a little better. So getting into it a little bit on RG, or on DK rather. This is the DK. Yeah, DK. Alexander Walker, no surprise. He's over here. He's over here. He's over here. Good amount of spend, though, it looks like, at the guard positions on DraftKings as well. A lot of Donovan Mitchell, some Shea Gilgeous-Alexanders, some Josh Giddey, some Brogdon. Here's IQ. RJ Barrett landing in some of the top lineups. Wasn't landing in a ton of them. It was like, what was he, like 11%? But it does look like he's making his way into some of these top lineups. Some Mitch here too. Fair amount of Mitch. Nick Claxton, who we had at the top of the board at the center position. Here's Clint Capella. So these two guys, again, just Mitch Robinson, Clint Capella. They were both, between 9 and 11%, somewhere around there. Looks like they're making it into a fair share of the top lineups. A lot of spend at the guard spot on DraftKings. Between the point guards, having like SGA shares. This one's got SGA and Dame. Right, this one's got Garland and Dame with a pretty decent mix of value guys in there. Donovan Mitchell. All right, that one stays fairly flat. Donovan Mitchell, Alexander Walker, RJ Barrett, Kyle Anderson, Mitch Robinson, Jeremy Sohan, Kuminga, and all right, there's Trae Young hiding the other side of this one. So a lot of the center ones going straight down that line of that top group on DraftKings. And then it does look like we're pulling some centers into the util spot here. Or it looks like either center power forward, mid-range types. Like we're getting some Nas there, some Drummond. Those are the extreme value options. Some Looney at the center spot, some Nas, some Capella, some Brolo. Or it's going to like Kawhi, Trae Young, Gobert to a lesser extent, Paul George, Giddey, DDR, Kawhi. Some pretty clear-cut value plays through there. In like Claxton, slow-mo in the mid-range. Getting a little bit of Kuminga in these top couple lineups, but not in most of these other ones. Like I said, I did give him a chunk of minutes, and I'll take another look at that after the shows. But I'm surprised he's landing in like, some of these top ones. Not a ton of others. I don't remember him landing all that firmly on the board. Where is he? Let's see. He was just in, that's interesting. In this DraftKings sim, he landed in winning lineups just 3.9% of the time. But look how many of the absolute winners, this is the top 150 lineups overall. He's in the top 2 overall, 3 of the top, 6, 7, 4 of the top 10, call it. That's really interesting. I wonder why. Jimmy Butler showing a little value. Some Miles Bridges coming through here. These lineups down here look pretty similar. Like Kyle Anderson, Jared Allen's. Everything basically jibes with where we were seeing the value when we were talking about things, which is always a good sign. $416 winner for that top lineup on the average. Massive ROI number. 0.32% win probability. It's about as good as you're going to see. You're not going to get too many more potential winners. And a man for man, just eyeballing it, I kind of like that second lineup a little bit better. Brogdon, Darius Garland, Terry Rozier, or Bogdan. Call it a draw. Prefer Bogdan. Obviously prefer Jimmy Butler, but this is a different kind of a play, and he's in this lineup over here. Bay, slow-mo, Claxton's the same. Butler. Garland, Brogdon, Dame, Jimmy Butler, Terry Rozier, Bogdan are the pivots there. Kuminga's the same, and then Capella or Brolo. I kind of like that second one a little bit better. Just, again, eyeballing it, but the results speak for themselves. That top one was, in fact, slightly better. Big dip, though, between those two and these others in terms of that win rate. That's also significant and surprising. A lot more same the rest of the way down the board. I wonder how many more 0.3s we could pick up, running this 2-3 more times. You run it a couple more times through the wash, you'll have a couple more lineups that are fairly similar to these kind of base constructions that would probably also land in this neighborhood, so you can pile them up a little bit. You do end up riding a lot of same type plays. You don't have that great of diversity in your portfolio, so it's not necessarily the best way to put together 150 lineups, but you can see the differences there. Phil Still, who's my single entry center? Which site, guys? Phil and Mamba. Which Mamba? I think you're on DK if I remember correctly. Phil, which site do you play on? Remind me. Mamba, top overall play of the slate. In many senses, Nickeil Alexander-Walker, because he's in 71% of winning lineups right now on FanDuel and 54% of them on DraftKings. But I don't know that that's necessarily the type of play you're looking for. On DK, that Nick Claxton play for 6,300, if we're talking about real players, not that Nickeil Alexander-Walker's not real, it's unfair to call him that. But the dude did score 4.9 FanDuel points in 26 minutes the last time he played. So, guys with a little bit more security maybe of points per minute, I do like that Nick Claxton play, which maybe also answers that single entry center question if you're talking about DK. That's just an aggressively good value center on the DraftKings slate. If you're talking about FanDuel, it's a different answer, Phil. Continuing that idea from Mamba, if we're just talking about pay up guys and guards, I really like Trae Young. Got him projected over 50, landing in 17% of DraftKings winners, 9,700 at the point guard spot. That is a very good high-end guard option with a pretty high ceiling. As a similar kind of a even more expensive option, SGA looks very good in that Lakers and OKC game. 15% of winners also projected above 50. So yeah, I like those guys. I think it makes sense that we're seeing all that spend at the guard positions in that DraftKings sim. I don't care about not just real basketball players. Yeah, exactly. So hopefully that gave you a couple of options there. And then there's very strong mid-range guys like Bogdan. IQ looks pretty good on that DraftKings slate. Troy Brown, Sadiq Bey to a lesser extent, Jeremy Sohan, Darius Garland, Keldon. So all those guys from that top 15% plus range can qualify to a degree for that answer. Conley looked better on the FanDuel slate. He's on DraftKings. He came up just 1.2% of the time in winners. His DraftKings points per dollar is just screwy. 6,400 point guard only. He's 4.05 points per dollar. Landed in winners 1.2% of the time, 1.4% of the time in top ones. Versus FanDuel, where he's 5,300, he was in winners 22.8% of the time. It's a monster difference. That's a 4.87 points per dollar versus on DraftKings 4.05. So he didn't look nearly as good on DraftKings. Could pay off in a got to a few points beyond his mean projection kind of a sense, and maybe that's enough on the right night, but not one of my top plays, not one of the plays that's coming through the Sims on DK. Let's jump to the FanDuel Sim, and then we're going to talk through this football slate still. Don't want to forget that. FanDuel, as expected, tons and tons of spend at the guard spots. Look at that. Harden, Brunson, Trey, Murray, ton of Garland in there. Excuse me. And then in the second spot, Curry, Brunson, Trey, DeJounte, Curry, SGA. Tons of spend at the guard spots on FanDuel, point guard especially. Decent amount of spend though at the shooting guard spots as well. You got Nickeil Alexander-Walker just critical. Seems like I don't want to call him a lock, but he'll be an effective lock in my lineups. He'll end up in 130 out of 150 at this rate. And then you just get another good player in that other shooting guard spot. Some of these you can go double up on the Alexander Walker Hayward shares. It does look kind of like what I was saying when I was speculating about it, where we're getting one good player, one value guy at both shooting guard and small forward. Like a lot of Matty Thybulle, some Naw, some Troy Brown in these first shares, and then a lot of Paul George, some Buddy, Jimmy Butler coming back the other way. It does seem like a construction of Nickeil Alexander-Walker, Gordon Hayward, and maybe one other value guy is going to be up quite a bit, though. And then we get some decent/predictable options in the power forward. Most of the Collinses are landing in the power forward spot. Looks like a lot of the Wembys are landing in the power forward spot. So it is kind of falling along the lines of getting center-only plays at center. And all those guys who had that power forward eligibility, like Draymond, I think, on this list is the first guy. I know Mobley does as well. But most of these guys, that's interesting, are from that center-only group. A few shares of the power forwards are trickling over, but not as many. So most of those power forward values that we saw are landing in the power forward spot. Interesting configurations. Very high-end looking lineups on FanDuel tonight. Feels like a 400-plus point kind of a night. Average cash winners obviously a lot lower because FanDuel's got a 30K top tonight. Your win probability 0.3s at the top again. Another 2 lineups and then a pretty decent cut in your win probabilities. And this doesn't have the ceiling score on it. Just want to see what the absolute. It's probably like 440s. Absolute ceiling score, yeah, 445. Doesn't look like it was one of our top 100 lineups. That was a DeJounte Murray, James Harden, Gordon Hayward, Paul George, Jimmy Butler, Nickeil Alexander-Walker, Jared Allen, Zach Collins, Kevon Looney. That's a goddamn good lineup. Wow. Spends 59.8. Wins just 0.04% of the time, so a significant dip from those 0.3% winners to 0.04. Top 1%, 7.3% of the time. Average cash won just $30. Sim ROI 337. A few spots down from that, there's one of the top lineups, one of those 0.3 lineups. The one that you guys can see that goes Harden, Curry, Nickeil Alexander-Walker, DeJounte Murray, Troy Brown, Buddy Hield, Jimmy Butler, Wemby, Kevon Looney. That one scored a max 443 and is a 0.3% winner in top ones 10% of the time. Average cash winnings of $154. So that's probably our top lineup of the day. Anyway, let us save this. Close that. Close this. Close this. And open that one. There it is. Little NFL action. We didn't forget the NFL. Okay, Beantown is on FanDuel. All right, that makes sense. Yeah, it was a big difference for Conley across sides, Beantown. So this football board. Oh, you know what? Let me real quick before I do this, I just want to drop a note that we will have a pending update for that Boyan news in the projections because I missed that before. It is 5:21. Yeesh. You try and knock this out in like half an hour or so. We're going to take a quick tour through the players. We'll look at, I think the lineup building is like the most compelling part of the show usually anyway. But we'll go through the options real quick and we'll talk about it. I'm saying quick just in the interest of, being able to update NBA projections for a 9-gamer, get my lineups built between 6 and 7 and then do all the football lineups and stuff. And these two teams, somewhat straightforward. No Kenny Walker for Seattle. Puts the ball in Zach Charbonnet's hands again at the running back position. That didn't really go that great in their last game. But I do think he's got upside. He's demonstrated some talent on the field. Fair amount of draft capital. Last time out as the lead back, 14 carries, played 47 snaps. 14 carries, 47 yards. The week before that, 53 snaps, 15 carries, 47 yards. At least he's consistent. 6 catches in week 11 on 6 targets. Caught 4 of 4 in week 12. 22 yards, 11 yards. So he halved his yardage total on 2/3 of the catches. Ran 28 and 26 routes. Caught everything thrown in his direction. Highly involved. We're talking about 20 touches. So I think Charbonnet is very, very interesting to go to. Showdown format, as usual, everybody's playable, and we're looking for a lot of the possibles, some of these downboard options to get into some lineups to create some differentiation. But guys like Charbonnet, definitely potential to be pretty critical. Both quarterbacks, high-end options, project out pretty well. Dak, in a class of his own in this game. CD right there with him on DraftKings. Little separation between the two on FanDuel where we're not getting the PPR scoring. But those are your clear 1-1A options on this game. I think Dak CD a lot more than Dak Geno. But Geno has his place. It is a 47.5 point total. They're 9-point dogs, so presumably he's going to have to be throwing. If Charbonnet can't get it going at the running back position, it feeds into the narrative that he'll have to be throwing. He's got 3 good receivers. DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, and then Jackson Smith and Jigba, who doesn't really work that much down the field, but still projects out okay. I like the weapons from Seattle in that they can at least provide good skill players to put in alongside your CeeDee Lambs, your Brandon Cookses, your Jake Fergusons, your Tony Pollards, and so on and so forth from the really, really appealing and really talented Cowboys side. But there are some good options there. In his last game, Dak Prescott threw 331 yards and 4 touchdowns. That was his third 4-touchdown game since their bye week in week 7. It was also his third 300-yard game, and he had a 400-yard game to boot on top of that. That was one of the 4-touchdown games. Week 10 versus the Giants, 404 yards, 4 touchdowns. The only clunker in the last 5 games was his week 11 game against Carolina. 189 yards and 2 touchdowns, threw 38 passes, completed 25 of them. Has been just absolute dynamite this season. Especially this run specifically has been really, really strong. And CeeDee's been right there with him. He had that stretch of 4 games with 100-plus yards. Weeks 8, 9, and 10, he had 12, 11, and 11 catches. 158, 191, 151 yards. 3 touchdowns across those games. He's got 5 touchdowns across their past 5 games. Just one of those games, the week 9 game against Philly. 191 yards, but didn't manage to get in the end zone. Had 2 in the 158-yard game the week before that. Obviously, he's expensive, but he's an absolute luxury item. More expensive than his quarterback is kind of funny when his quarterback is that high end. 11-4, 17-1 in the captain spot versus 11. So that'll play well for Dak in terms of Dak captain, but this is going to be challenging to put together in DK and keep your lineup clean. Tony Pollard scored touchdowns each of the last 2 weeks. It's encouraging after such a lousy season up to then. 12 carries for 61 and a score against Carolina week 11. 13 carries for 79 and a touchdown. Also caught 6 passes. Added 24 yards receiving in last week's game. He remains very high end. Despite the touchdown drought, despite not putting up the yardage, the monster games that we were maybe expecting coming into the season, he's a very talented back. The price is right compared to where some of the other pricing is. Can't really argue with Tony Pollard. They're going up against the defense that's allowing 4.2 rush yards per attempt. That ranks 20th in the league. 6.3 yards per pass attempt. That ranks 12th in the NFL. On the Seattle side, they'll be facing a defense allowing 4.1 yards per rush attempt. Technically that's 16th, but I mean, we're talking about a tenth of a yard between the two rush defenses, but they're much better pass defense. 5.7 yards per pass to attempt, ranks 5th. So obviously the defense plays a little bit more in Dallas's favor. They're the big favorites. No surprises there. But Pollard will have an opportunity to chew up some yardage. If he's having a day, maybe it impacts CD and his ceiling, Dak and his ceiling. Downstream, you have Brandon Cooks. Roller coaster type year. Had a monster week 10. 9 catches, 173 yards, and a touchdown against the Giants. Touchdown last week on 4 catches for 72 yards, 5 targets. Caught 3 of 4 passes in between those 2 games in week 11. That was the weaker game for a couple of these guys. No touchdown in that game. Just 1 catch for 7 yards at Philly in week 9. That was a disaster game. But had 3 catches for 49 and a touchdown in week 8. 4 for 36 and a touchdown in week 6. So from week 6 on, including a bye week, there's 4 touchdowns there? Decent targeting, decent catch totals in most of those games. Just the one really big game. But he's definitely been more along the lines of the Brandon Cooks that we expected in recent weeks. Solid option here. More comparable to the Seattle receivers than he is to CeeDee Lamb. But definitely a pretty solid option. Jake Ferguson, tons of targeting. Plenty of red zone targets. Was not targeted in the red zone last time out. Just caught 1 pass, 1 of 3 targets for 35 yards. Targets in the red zone in 4 straight games before that, including multiple targets twice. Had the bye week. Weeks 5 and 6 wasn't targeted in the red zone, but before that was targeted every game, including 5 targets in the red zone in week 1. He has 4 touchdowns, 3 of which came after their bye week, weeks 8, 9, and 10. He had a touchdown each of those weeks. 2 lighter weeks in a row, though. 3 catches for 32, 1 catch for 35. But plenty of upside at the tight end position. Defense on both sides is playable, but obviously the Seahawks defense is the lower end of the equation. You're just hoping for some chaos. You're hoping for some turnovers. They're pressuring the quarterback at a 24.6% rate, and they do have 32 sacks on the season. On the Dallas side, they pressure the quarterback at a 22% rate with a 31% blitz rate, and they have 37 sacks on the season. Both teams can and do pick off the ball a little bit too. So I think on the back of some turnovers and piling up some sack potential, I think you can get away with the Seahawks defense, but the Cowboys is both, more appealing and going to be more popular. Michael Gallup, just 1 catch for 13 yards last time on 1 target, 14 routes. Ran 17 routes the week before that, caught 3 of 5 for 31. Everybody scored against the Giants, so of course he had a touchdown catch. 2 catches, 70 yards on 2 targets. Ran 21 routes, caught 1 of them for a touchdown. More of a dart throw than anything else at this point, but a playable one. 3,800 on DK, 7,500 on FanDuel. Rico Dowdle picks up some touches. Saw just 9 snaps the last time out, though. 3 carries for 11 yards. Picked up a target for 15 yards and did score on that target. So a little bit of involvement in the passing game. Has had red zone targets, importantly. That one apparently wasn't. How do you score a 15-yard receiving touchdown without it being a red zone target? Oh, I'm an idiot. I'm looking at the wrong column. I was looking at red zone carries, not red zone targets. He did have a red zone target. That was it. He scored on it. Had a red zone target in the game before that as well. And then red zone carries. He had none last time out, but he had 3 the week before, 2 in week 10, and 1 in week 9. So he's getting to touch the ball a little bit when they get down inside the 20. Tolbert, Luke Schoonmaker, Devonta Turpin, minorly playable options. Schoonmaker, just 1 catch, 12 yards last week on 19 snaps with the offense, 5 routes run. But he saw just 22 snaps with the offense the week before that, ran just 8 routes, targeted the same amount twice, and he came down with 1 of them in the end zone. 2 catches, 23 yards, and a touchdown. Had a red zone target that game, obviously. Had 1 in week 9. Had 2 red zone targets back in week 4. As backup tight end options go, if I can guarantee myself 2 targets and hope that one of them comes in the red zone for 1,800, It's not bad. For 6,000 on FanDuel, it's playable on a showdown slate. I do like going to those second tight ends when they have at least a little bit of involvement. But we are looking at pretty thin volume overall for Luke Schoonmaker. Tolbert, 2 catches, 49 yards the last time out. Ran 13 routes, caught 3, was targeted 3 times. Scored in week 9, 3 catches, 49 yards, and a touchdown that week. Definitely has a little bit of gadget play upside. Kevonta Turpin, you get some return game upside. You get some involvement receiving. You get a little bit of involvement rushing. Another gadget type player. Last time out, 5 snaps with the offense. One catch for 34 yards and scored a touchdown. Week before that, two catches on 3 targets, 10 yards. 1 carry for 13 yards. Didn't score. Was out there for 11 snaps. Those guys are kind of made for showdown format. Like, I'd much rather be using these guys as gadget options for showdown than on a main slate. So they're kind of ideal for what we're looking for in that sense. But you have to remember, a lot of the time you're going to be booking a very low score, a 1, a 2, a 0 into your lineups. It's just those days where they happen to break that 40-yard play and score a touchdown that now there's a lot of value in that spot. Trey points out Turpin, Tolbert, and Gallup maybe rotating a little bit through the third wide receiver spot. So Gallup's routes, since the bye, 19, 25, 21, 17, 14. Snap counts have gone 32, 34, 36, then took a dip to 24 and then 18. So yeah, the last couple of weeks. Turpin went to 11 and 5. That's around consistent. He didn't play in week 10. That was around consistent with what he was getting snaps-wise and routes-wise. Tolbert. It's weird. Tolbert actually has run fewer routes and taken fewer snaps than he did weeks 8, 9, and 10. 27, 30, and 48 snaps. Last 2 weeks, 27 and 20. Routes run 15, 22, 28, and then 16 and 13. So it looks like Tolbert just saw an uptick in weeks 9 and 10 in terms of the routes run and then kind of normalized again. But I think, especially, again, since we're talking showdown, all those guys are very playable for showdown and kind of fit for showdown in terms of, lower end, lower cost, big playability, and you really only need the one big play. So I like those options. I don't think there's really anything downboard. Deuce Vaughn hasn't played the last 2 games, didn't play for 5 straight before that. Jalen Brooks was out there for 6 snaps with the offense, caught 1 of 1 for 24 yards last week. Played 24 snaps in week 10, caught 4 passes for 39 yards that week. Not really involved otherwise. Sean McKeon, 9 snaps with the offense last week, ran 2 routes, hasn't touched the ball all season. No carries, no catches, 2 targets all season for Sean McKeon. So I think we let him go by the wayside. I think we let Jalen Brooks go by the wayside. Those guys just come out of my player pool. And then Hunter Lepke, you're just looking for a lucky break red zone attempt or red zone catch, but they really don't do that very much with this player. He had 2 red zone carries and scored a touchdown, 2 carries for 4 yards back in week 4. That's about it. Every now and then he might get a target coming out of the backfield, but really not much there with Hunter Lepke. I probably forklift him out of the player pool too. These 3 guys come out, but you still have a pretty deep list of playable options on the Cowboys side here. Getting into the man-for-man on the Seattle side, DK Metcalf, 30 routes run, 9 targets, caught just 3 of them last game. No touchdown, 32 yards. Jeremy Sohan playing tonight. That's good. Week before that, 9 targets, caught 5 of them for 94. This is DK we're talking about. 94 yards and a touchdown against the Rams in that one. Pretty decent performance. 7 catches on 12 targets, 98 yards, no score in the Week 10 game. So 2 of his last 3 have been pretty effective fantasy games. At the same time, Geno had a good Week 10, 369 yards and 2 touchdown passes. Just 233 yards and a touchdown on 34 pass attempts against the Rams in that Week 11 game. That was a little bit of a letdown. That Washington game, the Week 10 one where he threw for 369 and 2 touchdowns, he threw the ball 47 times. Excellent volume there. 27 pass attempts against San Francisco last time, 180 yards on an interception, no touchdown. That was an ugly game. San Francisco is really good. They were giving them all kinds of problems. They couldn't run the ball all that effectively in that one. So a little bit of a wash, but Dallas could do similar things. Like I said, I just, kind of missed the more effective version of Geno from last year where we got away with him a lot for fantasy. No great game from Geno this year from fantasy. A couple of 300-yarders. 2 touchdowns has been the ceiling. A lot of interceptions thrown this year. Where do we total that for Geno? 12 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. Dak's got 23 and 6. 7.2 yards per pass attempt. Dak throwing for 7.7. 8.3 intended air yards for Dak. 7.3 for Geno. Dak's even got 2 rushing touchdowns and Geno's got none. Dak's receivers have dropped a lot more passes. Something that Geno can win at. They both throw the ball about 33 times a game, complete about 21, 22 of them. 260 yards versus 240 yards a game. But Dak just on the back of those touchdowns, if nothing else, is obviously the touchdowns and the yards per attempt. Obviously, the prime option there. Charbonnet I touched on. Again, definitely playable. It's going to be 20 touches or 18 to 20 touches. Presumably has a little bit better of a game than we saw last two times out. Tyler Lockett, just 3 catches on 5 targets for 30 yards last time. 5 catches for 51 the week before on 7 targets. Basically catching 2 out of every 3 passes the last few games. 8 catches on 10 targets for 92 and a touchdown in the Washington game. Solid 1-1A between Tyler Lockett, DK Metcalf. You can go back and forth. Lockett at a significantly lower price, though. DraftKings 72 versus 96 for DK. 11 to 12 is a lot less of a difference on the FanDuel slate. It's significant, but it's not nearly as big a difference as that gap on DK. Adds to the appeal of Lockett for sure. Maybe pushes a little bit more shares of Lockett above DK Metcalf as far as being an appealing captain, too. Jackson Smith and Jigba, the problem, as highlighted in shows past, continues to be just a 6.4 yard ADOT. That said, 5 targets a game, 3.5 catches a game. Doesn't cost all that much, projects out fairly well. Last time out, 2 catches for 41. Game before that, 3 catches for 40. 4 for 53, 6 for 63. We're fairly consistent, handful of catches, couple of chunk plays. 2 touchdowns on the season that came in weeks 7 and 8. A playable option for sure. Won't be all crazy popular like the other, top end receivers over here and the 2 top end receivers on his team. I do not love the tight end position here, given that we've got the Noah Fant, Will Dissly, Colby Parkinson 3-headed beast. But for showdown purposes, it's a little bit more appealing. Noah Fant, 32 snaps with the offense last time, ran 22 routes. The week before that, 40 snaps with the offense, ran 23 routes, targeted twice each game. Caught 1 of them for 4 yards, then the next game caught 2 of them for 25. Dissly, in the week that Fant saw 40 snaps, he played 25. In the week that Fant saw 32 snaps, he played 16. He ran 9 and 3 routes those 2 weeks. Targeted 3 times and 1 time. Caught 1 pass in each game. 9 yards and 21 yards. Parkinson saw 21 snaps 2 weeks ago. 19 snaps last week. Ran 8 routes each time. Was only targeted once across the 2 games. Caught it for 9 yards. That was in the week 12 game against San Francisco. So I think if we're ranking it, it just kind of goes in that order. Noah Fant first. Will Dissly second. And then Colby Parkinson third. I don't know how much Parkinson I get to. Probably have a little. Where he gets problematic is what will be low ownership, what is low pricing. If you're just like running and taking the results out of pure sims, you might get him as a high ROI play just because he's not going to be at all popular. And there's enough in the just 2-point projection for this money that it'll show him in top lineups across, thousands and thousands of sims. So just something to watch out for. Just monitor where these tight ends come up. I think any one of them in a showdown format is totally playable. but just keep an eye on where they end up. In terms of they're targeting the red zone, we do have 5 targets in the red zone for Colby Parkinson on the season. Those came in scattered. Week 3, 1. Week 6, 7. And week 10, he had 1. That adds up to 4 in my book, not 5. Disley doesn't look like he's been targeted in the red zone. And then Noah Fant once. And that holds up. That was back in week 3. How many times has Geno even thrown the ball in the red zone? 46 pass attempts in the red zone. It's not nearly as much as his opponent. I wish I had a couple more guys in here to see where that stacks up. That's not very high, though. So it takes a little bit of upside away if they're not going to be looking for these tight ends to score touchdowns or looking for them in the red zone. And I don't know that the numbers for Parkinson in those red zone targets with his just total limited targets overall, I don't know that there's any actual support there. 2 of the weeks where he had upticks or had 2 of those targets in the red zone were weeks where he was more involved, played 31 snaps each of those weeks, ran 17 and 8 routes. Another one, he ran 18 routes, played 50 snaps. That was all the way back in week 3. So I don't think we get overly excited about that option by any means. DJ Dallas, we'll see a little bit of uptick. He played 8 snaps last week, 7 snaps the week before. Carried the ball once in week 11, twice in week 12. Was targeted once in each game. 4 routes run in each game. Caught it in both games. 14 yards in one game combined, 15 yards in the other game combined. No touchdowns to speak of. D. Eskridge has played 4 games this entire season. He drew just 1 snap last time. He ran the ball for 10 yards. Game before that in week 11, he played 12 snaps, ran 8 routes, was targeted once, didn't come down with it. As a total dart throw, maybe he gets out there for 200, but more along the lines of a take him out of the player pool kind of an option. Kenny McIntosh played just week 12 all season, played 3 snaps with special teams, didn't get out there with the offense. I don't think he's going to be in my player pool. Shorter options for sure on the Seattle side, but Geno plus DK and Lockett is good. Charbonnet on his own, perfectly fine. Smith and Jigba along with Geno shares. Any one of these guys also, since showdown format, perfectly fine on their own. Any 2 of these guys don't have to worry that much about correlation. But there's some playable options up and down. Let's look at how they come together in the builder. Oh, you know what? Let me update the entry numbers. Got to make sure of that. 5:44, we're going to try and spend about 15 minutes exactly across both sites. Let's see if we can pull it off. And then I'll get out of here. I'll be able to update basketball projections for anything that's changed. And we will be all set. But let's see. NFL Showdown. Well, there are 117,647. That's consistent on DK. FanDuel changes a little bit more often. FanDuel 66,137. They're both exactly the same as they were the other night. While I'm here, let me just grab my placeholders for NBA. Don't want to miss that. I was surprised the other day. I'd forgotten to put placeholders in at like 6:45. There were still just enough slots that I could jump into the FanDuel tournament. Those days suck. When I do a show, I spend the afternoon updating everything, especially when it becomes a scramble around lock. And then I've gone through a lot of the lineup building process and then, I didn't build lineups. The days where it's filled, that sucks. As I've told you guys before, that's when you get into crackhead mode, just trying to buy lineups that people cancel. But you can't do that with just 15 minutes left. All right, so let's take a look at some of these DraftKings lineups. Let's see what happens with a CD. CD was the more expensive of these two, so let's go CD DAC and just see where we're already below 5,500 per spot if you just start there. That is going to be challenging, but let's see where we can get to. I think $6,800 Zach Charbonnet makes a lot of sense with that combo. You just take like the sharp end of the Dallas passing attack. This is going to be very popular too, whatever we do with this construction, just on the virtue of those two guys in those roles being extremely popular. But I think if you take the sharp upside of this, maybe you can take the running back and hope that he does the lion's share of work even against a pretty good defense, but with the pass defense being better, Geno being not great. So I think that's justifiable. And then that leaves me at 5. Go Myers. His picks backed up of 53. Maybe you go Jackson Smith. And again, you're not really playing the big score game on the Seattle side. Why can't I get this right? And then 55. Oh, that leaves me a hundo short of the Cowboys. That sucks. Instead of Jackson Smith, I could go to... I mean, you could just double up the kickers, I guess. And then you can get to Cowboys D, which is where I was targeting getting to here. 28 dupes. Don't love it. But that's like the nature of the kind of lineup that you're going to be building if you just choose these two guys up at the top. You're already getting into double kicker and a defense in there. Not that there's anything wrong with playing at least one of those kickers and the Cowboys D. It's just your overall lineup construction there. Not the greatest. But you could do something like... whoops. Yeah, let's leave that. Let's go Dowdle there. Let's see if we can get a Geno passing. We could probably get Geno and Jackson in here. Leaves me 33. That's viable. And then you could do like a Tolbert. You could do like one of the tight ends. You could do a Turpin. Let's go Tolbert just because it's more expensive. 12 dupes. 80 DK points. 12 dupes. Let's go back to that Charbonnet construction. I think that makes sense. If we want to use that as a base, and then we could get different maybe by grabbing a couple of the downboard options. Oh, Jake Bobo I didn't talk about when I was talking about Seattle's passing attack. Jake Bobo, 4 routes run last time. 12 snaps with the offense. 24 snaps with the offense the week before. Ran 11 routes. He's caught 1 pass each of the last 2 games. Under 10 yards. 2 catches against Washington in week 10. 13 yards. Hasn't really been relevant since that week 7 game where he had 4 catches, 61 and a touchdown. Dart throw at 1,600 if you want it. I don't think I want to go downboard into these guys. I just did the other version of that before. Michael Gallup in there. That's a weird one that nobody likes. And then 57. Got Dallas Cowboys in there already. I could put Jackson Smith back in there. Like that gets you a little bit more unique. 79, that's competitive points-wise with that other one. 8 dupes. That's not terrible. Again, it's dupe still a little bit too much for my tastes, but especially on DK where the prize pool is a lot bigger. If you're chopping it 8 ways on DraftKings, you're doing pretty well prize-wise. Let's look at some that don't have CD and Dak at the top of the list here. Get a little bit more interesting. So let's go Lockett because, like I said, significantly less expensive than DK. See, I mean, that's a good illustration of the difference with these guys in the captain role versus like even a Tyler Lockett. Now I've got 4 very, very good, pretty high scoring options there, and I've still got $3,800 to spend across these last 2 spots. So I'm in essentially the same salary situation I was before. You go like Myers and then 32. Give me Noah Fant. 14 times, jeez. It's also off the projection by, what, 2 or 3 from the high that we saw. Let's see if we can do better than those 2 guys. What happens if we put the Cowboys D in there? We get $2,000, so we got to go to like the lower end. But there's playable parts. There's a lot of cheapo playable options down here. Not quite with Tolbert, not quite with Turpin. Like DJ Dallas could certainly, do something. Hasn't. Nobody's idea of a good play. Luke Schoonmaker, maybe you get the right day where one of those targets falls in the end zone. They're back to 8 dupes. A better score. I just think creating a foundation like this is significantly better in terms of your whole lineup spend. Cowboys D in the captain spot. We've seen a lot of captain winners of defenses. We've seen them be really, really in high end, and especially these active, heavy sack, decent secondary type defenses. Plus, Dallas is the team that's got that dude that's got 5 pick sixes, right? Can we make it 6? Oh, there you go, Trey. I just scrolled down and saw Trey's captain. How about Cowboys D captain? Let's take a look at that. So we'll go there. We'll go we'll give him a little Tony Pollard to work with. I think we can certainly take Dak along with that. Maybe we forgo CD in this one. And we drop to a Brandon Cooks. And we get it kind of Cowboys wipeout. And we can take Charbonnet on the idea just, he'll have some yardage and be okay because we just need somebody from that team. And now we still got $6,000 to spend. We're below our point total of those other lineups by a fair amount, though. I already have the Cowboys D. You got Jackson Smith. You got Jake Ferguson. Maybe I'll go Jake instead of Cooks and pick up a little bit of cash. 78 now. So you could go to Lockett at that, but that's duped 29 times. We're 8-9 points shy of those other ones. Oh no, those were 80 and 7. I was thinking they were 89 and 90. This is a high score. That's a good lineup competitively in terms of the score that we're seeing here, but the 29 dupes is pretty extreme. I am using all popular players though, so let's see how we can differentiate a little. What if we go Cowboys D, Tony and Zach? This isn't going to follow the game script at all. That would be a weird one to choose. Just because he fits in the salary, I want to see what this looks like. 15 times, good score. Don't love the idea of a quarterback against the defense captain. Excuse me. This was just plugged in here because, like I said, the salary fit exactly, and I wanted to see what it looked like. But if you went I'm just looking at all skill plus a kicker. You could go Cooks probably without Dak. I prefer Cooks without Dak, I think, than CD without Dak. And now we've got a buy whoever you want kind of a spend. I mean, you could go to Dak now. That's only 11 times duped. That's not too bad. Maybe upgrade at the, what do we have, 44? We got another 16. Can we do anything interesting with that kicker spot? Not really. If you go to Ferg, you're 14 times duped. You can't get both these guys, right? Yeah, that's minus 200, but we could go cheaper there. Or can we actually? 68, 72 for Lockett. 96, yeah. Not great. You got to go to Jackson Smith and Jigba. That gets you down to 12. There are definitely ways to put this together with the Cowboys up top. I'm just I'm not getting as unique as I would want. But there's plenty of money to spread around. You can obviously use different guys. You don't have to go to that running back configuration. You could easily do something like this to start, and then you've got 64. Hell, you could even do that if you really wanted to get cute. And then you've got 400 left, so you're taking one of the Hunter Lepke D. Eskridge. I'd probably take D. Eskridge in that situation. Hope for the best. assuming he's active. I don't even know if he's fully active. That's not going to be duped. But that's pretty low end once we get that extreme with it. But like if you went Geno and Tyler Lockett there to make it a little bit more realistic, now you got 28 left. That's kind of reasonable. You could put Turpin in that spot. That isn't bad. That's competitive projection-wise. It's right in line those 79, 80s that we've seen. Duped only 4 times. You get the gadget big play Turpin. Cowboys D. I don't dislike that. And Turpin's a kick returner too, right? So you get a little correlation between if he runs one back, you dupe up your score and you get it twice plus half again on top for the captaincy. It's not bad. I would play this lineup. Yeah, you've got Geno and one of his receivers against the Cowboys, but you really only need them to put up one score. And if the Cowboys pick Geno off, run one back obviously is a big difference, but with the number of sacks they can probably rack up, I think that is still enough to support that play. Kind of an interesting one to end on there. We've got 3 minutes left before 6 o'clock because I get too into building these DraftKings lineups. Let's take a quick look at FanDuel. Just go with the obvious approach. To start, you go with those two guys and you've still got 8,800 per spot. So you can do basically whatever. Let's throw Ferg in there. Let's give Dak a day. Let's actually reverse these guys. We'll give Dak day. He's going to be crazy popular up in that spot, I'm sure. But as we said, kind of the clear-cut, most likely top scorer. So far, we built a foundation that's duped 1,100 times, though. 87 left to spend. Take what happens if I put Geno in? We dropped to 35, so that's too aggressive. That would be 55. So let's take Lockett. Give us 65. And then we can go to like a Turpin. Come on. Only 6 dupes there. Not awful. Dak for a Dak, CD, Jake Ferguson, Tyler Lockett start. That's not bad to get that down to 6 dupes. Turpin obviously not all that popular on FanDuel. Let's take these 3 spots a different way. I just want to see what other Dak lineups look like. Let's go like Dak, Cooks and Lamb, 8,000 per spot. Charbonnet just to spend some money and make it interesting. That takes us too far. That's 45, so we can't go there. So you can't go to Charbonnet or DK in that situation, so you're probably relegated down to this direction. You go for a wipeout play. 6,000 left. I don't love just having like Will Dissly there. That's not great. DJ Dallas, not great. FanDuel a little tighter down the bottom, especially with the 3-way tight end options. Obviously, either one of these guys could slot into that spot. Will Dissly, Colby Parkinson. I cannot use Kevonta Turpin in that spot. I could use Jake Bobo. Cannot use DJ Dallas. Don't really trust any of those other options down board there. So it gets a little bit tighter over here. If we didn't go Dallas in that spot, we could obviously free up some money. Go like Jason Myers instead. Now I got 75. You go like... Can't go Gallup. Can't go Dowdle. I can't go Noah Fant, who, again, I think is the more playable out of those 3 guys. What happens if I do that? 11 dupes. I like that other one I built before. I like that one better. Let's do one more. We'll go with a DK, Geno, Tony Pollard, starting point. 9,700 left to spend. Give me Jake and give me Brandon Cooks. It's a weird one. 10 dupes. It's not bad. Playable. Some like off-brand isn't the right way to put it, but like scoring options 2, 3, and 4 on the Cowboys offense without their quarterback, and then just this combo up at the top from the Seattle side supporting the overall scoring. It probably needs to be a Seattle win in terms of the actual football game. Seattle's defense might be a good one to mix into that instead of like if you wanted to go Seattle D instead of at 8,000 instead of like Jake Ferguson. Lowers it even more. This one's maybe for Seattle fans. What about a Tony Pollard lineup? Tony, Gino, Lockett. The Cowboys D. And Cooks, me. I don't know if Cook's in there. What about like Myers? 33 times duped. Yowza. Michael Gallup? That's kind of an interesting way to take that. 16 times duped. Leaves $3,000 on the table. Obviously, we can go to a, if we did go to Cooks, we're getting 30 times duped, spending all our money. I like some of those ones we built before better than some of these other ones we're landing on. Yeah, you can do it. 65 gives me who again? Turpin. The skill player only special, where you can just take these 5 guys and just mix up, put them in every order possible, and just take the 5 or the 4 top skill players in the game, plus Kevonta Turpin, or your $6,000, $6,500 value guy of choice. But FanDuel does, since there's no salary multiplier, does provide you the ability to do something like this, where you're just getting this ridiculously high-end core of 4 guys, and you do one version like this, you do one version where Lockett's in the captain spot, and so on and so forth. Not an approach I actually try to follow, but given that this is duped only 5 times in this configuration, if we swap out why am I even bothering doing that? Their names are all right here. Yeah, fine. We swap out Lockett into the captain spot instead of Pollard. That gets down to 1 unique. Again, we're not using either quarterback in these, so it's kind of flawed. But if both quarterbacks have a 1-2 touchdown day, 1 interception, not that many crazy yardage type game, you could get there with this. Different ways to build and to mix and match FanDuel shares. Just a little bit of an illustration about like how the slates are a little bit more dynamic or very, very different from site to site. With that in mind, 604 gang. Let me pop back over here. 604. Time to get some lineup built. Time to see what chaos has been unleashed in the NBA slate and get everything updated over there. People have been waiting patiently, I'm sure, for the projections updates. So we're going to get on that. Going to get some lineups built. Brandon Miller ruled out. Jimmy Butler available to play. Miller out is a biggie. Sohan available to play. We had that one. Looks like so far that's the only news, but definitely at least one change coming. So keep an eye on the NBA projections. With that in mind, guys, hit the like button for me. Follow the @RotoScouts Twitter handle. Jump into the Discord, say hi. And otherwise, I will wish you good luck tonight. And I'll say somebody out there go win something. And we will be back tomorrow. Probably basketball only tomorrow. Usual football marathon on Sunday. But you can count on football projections to go up sometime tomorrow. And we'll be here all day for basketball. So see you tomorrow, guys. Have a good one.